entrepreneurship. And we're going to just get started on our next panelist. He is a photographer, an artist, a husband, a father, a skateboarder, an art handler at the San Jose Museum of Art. And he is the former owner of Seeing Things Gallery, which personally was one of the first things I came across when I moved to San Jose and really thought it was super dope. So I'm really excited to have Jai Tanju with us. Jai, thanks for coming on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yeah, I'm doing fine.
Awesome. So like I was mentioning a little bit earlier, you were kind of in the world of skate culture and photography and film. Could you tell me a little bit, just like very briefly, about your come up as a creative or just as an artist in general?
It was really kind of organic. I was a skateboarder for many years, from when I was like 10 or 12 into past high school and then into my 20s. And it was just really kind of a creative place to be, skateboarding in general. And it drew me into photography from just being a skateboarder and seeing photographers come and watching other people. And that's what kind of got me sparked on being in art. I also have a family of artists. My father was a painter and my grandfather was a painter. So I kind of was around it when I was young as well. But it wasn't until my 20s that I actually kind of like started to poke around with photography.
Nice. And so you mentioned that you were like you got it really into skateboarding. What was it about what was it about like skating that got you into the idea of like photographing it and capturing it? Like what about skate culture really drew you in?
You know what? It was just something I was doing. I lived in Hawaii for a few years after I got out of high school. And when I moved home, my parents basically said I needed to go to college. So I took a few writing classes and I took a photography class. And at the same time, the people that I had grown up with were becoming pro skateboarders. And they were people coming to shoot photographs of them. And I kind of saw that I was around all the time. So I moved from my college course to just kind of like photographing my friends. And it was kind of just like a good moment that they needed the photographs and I was taking them. So I ended up getting into some magazines and which, if you're into photography and then you get a photograph published, it really does something for you. It's like, really gets you motivated to continue. So I just got inspired by other skate photographers and just the culture in general, and just finding a little path or an in to get photographs published was really beneficial.
So you're at this point in your like career when you're doing all this photography and like, getting published, which is like, of course, really big. How did you kind of go from that to like starting Seeing Things Gallery and having kind of this art gallery space for kind of this like subculture of artists?
Well, it was a long time. You know what I mean? I was a skateboard photographer for maybe 10 or almost 15 years before I started the gallery. And just kind of like everything in my life, it just step by step moving in a direction where I was being a skateboard photographer. And then just kind of meeting a lot of people in the skateboard world and other photographers and things that led me to starting an exchange of photography through the mail, the print exchange program, which was inspired by the guy Ray Johnson and the movie How to Draw a Bunny, which is a really great movie about a collage artist in New York who also started a correspondence through the mail of art. And just through doing that, the print exchange got me interested in other people's photography and in books. And after doing the print exchange for some amount of years, I curated a show of photography at Empire 7 with the people that I was already exchanging mail with. So I curated a show and it kind of got me sparked. And I figured out that I was kind of good at curating shows and then hanging them as well. And then I decided to continue pursuing curating shows. And you just start to put yourself out there in the world, and people respond, if you're being truthful. And um, it led to a lot of other shows, just with the print exchange, where I did showing of my actual mail that I got, um, which is like thousands of pieces of mail. Um, and I ended up doing, I think maybe 10 shows of the print exchange work. But it was all over the world. And then once I got done doing all those shows, I was here in San Jose, and I just kind of decided, I wanted to start a gallery. So it was quite a trek to get to actually opening the doors, maybe 3 years or so.
So can you tell me a little bit about some of that track? Because I'm sure there are people here who are, it is kind of a dream for a lot of artists to, like, have some type of gallery space, not just for yourself, but because I think the skate, like, I also somewhat came up in this, like, the world of, like, skating was my introduction to, like, photography and art, and people like Ed Templeton that I got into. It kind of is this community space. So, like, why did you decide to kind of create a gallery, and what were some of, like, the major roadblocks to get from, you know, having that idea and then turning into a physical space for a fellow artist?
Yeah, like I said, it was like a 3-year process of where I decided with my wife, like, oh, you should start a gallery. And I was like, yeah, I should. And the first, like, boundary was finding a place. And that was really the toughest thing, because the rent is very expensive here. And, I don't have very much money like most artists that are starting out. Um, and it was just a lot of looking, and like looking in the paper, and then looking up storefronts, and then trying to talk to people like Sherry and Brian at AD, and kind of like did a few like window things with them. And then looked for a long time, and just finding little spots, and like figuring out who owned the building, and then talking to them, and then trying to get in there. And I basically failed at that for 3 years. And it really always comes down to who you know, and how they can help you. Um, just being a part of the downtown, for 10 years or so before that, I just knew a lot of people from going to barbecues and going to bars, and just being in downtown San Jose. And one day I was walking my dog by the work uh, by a location that was just opening up as a music store. And it was our first location that was on 3rd and Santa Clara. I was walking my dog by, and I saw a guy that I knew, and I started to talk to him, and he was saying, oh, I'm opening a music store. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And he took me around, and then he walked me through, and he's like, oh, we have these spaces that we're going to rent for studios, for people to practice studios. So he brought me through all the studios, and the last one was a storefront, basically, with a door and a window to the street. And asked him how much it was for that space, and he said, I didn't know you were in a band or played music. And I said, I don't. I want to open an art gallery. And he looked at me and he said, huh, okay, well, I'll rent it to you for X amount of money. And I was kind of like, all right, you've got a deal. And so it was a lot of looking around, and then finally just seeing somebody that I knew that just happened to have that space. So it's so beneficial to just talk to people. And it's a thing that I'm trying to teach my daughter right now. She's only 2.5. And it's kind of like, I stop on the street and I talk to people, whether I know them or not. You just say hello, talk to them about their day, and you never know what's going to happen. And this was just a time when I could have just walked right by the guy with my dog and gone to the park, but I stopped to talk to him and see what he was doing. And it worked out that that was our first space.
Serendipity is, like, huge when it comes to things like that, and conversation. It's interesting to hear a father go, yeah, I want to make sure that my kid knows the importance of talking to strangers.
Yeah. I found that, yeah,
I know what you mean.
that is a tough thing, and it's hard. Like, I know you shouldn't just talk to everybody, but when she's with me and we're walking down the street, you know what I mean? I want her, especially if we're walking by a house, every day for the last year, like, the lady says hello, you should stop and say hello. You know what I mean? But yeah, that is kind of a weird thing. I'm sorry.
No, no, you're fine. I'm giving you a hard time. I think the way my professional career started with like starting my own music, like blog and organization, was from talking to some guy who was happened to be at this like open mic, and then we became friends, and that became the co-founder of the organization. And the guy who became the third member of our organization, he just happened to tap us and ask what we were talking about, and then he just wanted to be part of it. So I think that like networking and conversation and community is really important. It feels like that's like a really important aspect of your work. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the print exchange, because I know it was like made up a lot of photos and photographs that you had. You kind of had just like sitting around in boxes, and then you're like, let's start sending these out. What prompted you to start like exchanging with all these different creatives? Now that we're talking about like friendship and community and things like that.
You know what? It was basically that movie. I was being a skateboard photographer, and I had a job working for a skateboarder magazine. And I had an office at my friend's house, and I just had all my photographic stuff, negatives, prints, computer, all kinds of things. And I would go there every day. And skateboarders are really like get up late, get out in the afternoon, go skating. You know, it's not really a rigorous kind of like 9 to 5 thing. But at the same time, I was somebody who got up at 6 in the morning, no matter what, and drank coffee and did work. So I would drink coffee, go to my office, and just kind of toy about and do work on different projects. And then a friend of mine just lent me these movies, DVDs, and one of them was that How to Draw a Bunny, which is about the artist Ray Johnson. And in the movie, he had started a correspondence called Correspondence of Mail, called the New York School of Correspondence. And he exchanged mail with all kinds of people, where he would send them art, and then they would add to it and send it back or send it to somebody else. And it just kind of got me excited about mail. It was weird at the time. Really, the only thing that I looked forward to in the mail was checks. I would do work for people, so I was always on the lookout for like a check coming, you know what I mean, $100, this, whatever. I was really living a life of, I rented a room for like $300. So for me, I needed to make $300 or more to live for that month, you know? And it was weird too, because at the time I saw the movie, and I remember this distinctly, that I looked at the wall near my computer, and there was a photograph that I had pinned to the wall, and it was from a friend of mine in in San Francisco, who was just sending his photographs in the mail. So I took it off the wall and I looked at it and I said, oh, Joe sent me something. This was last year. So it was kind of like this moment where I was like, if I send him something back, he'll probably send me something. So I kind of exchanged with him for a little while, and then I decided to like just put print exchange so that he knew that we were going back and forth. And then I just kind of went on a rampage of sending mail to different creative people that I knew, and different photographers all over the world. And I put that on there, print exchange program. You just take a photograph, you write their address, and then you put a stamp, send it to them, no envelope, no nothing. And then people just started to return the mail. And that's how that got started.
It seems like a lot of the things that you did were just kind of like, not to like downplay, but like making it up kind of as you go along. You're like, oh, this seems cool. And then it just grew and grew kind of naturally. And because you have this very organic process of like kind of building all of these things, you know, what were some of the things you wish you knew when you first started out? Like take yourself like back, you know, when you first started. Also I want to take a second to the fact that you said that rent for a place with $300, and that's just.
Well, I'm probably a bit older than everyone in this panel. So, these things I'm talking about, like this is even before the internet. So this is like probably late 90s, early 2000s or something, you know. So blogs were just kind of getting started, and like the internet was just kind of like chugging along. And I think like I made some, it was like MySpace or something, you know what I mean? Where it was like, okay, so like that's where we're at, you know. But Yeah, and I mean, I lived in a skate house and a punk house down on 13th Street, and there was probably, I don't know, 13 of us living in 10 or so rooms, closets and different places. That's just kind of how it was back then. You could find spaces to live with your friends, and um, so yeah, it was a bit cheaper.
So yeah, what were some of the things that you like wish you knew when you were first coming up? Like say in the early, you were talking about the early 2000s and in that wonderful time of $30 rent. Like what were some of the tools you wish you had, or the things that you would tell your younger self as far as getting started and getting.
Probably just tell myself to like slow down and just like think about things a little bit more, because I've always been a little bit of just kind of fly by the seat of my pants and make a lot of mistakes. And I think if I would have sat down and looked at the mistake that I made and really analyze it, then it would have been, I could have like did a little troubleshooting. And I mean, this is also where I was at, is this is before digital cameras. So I was becoming a photographer and shooting film, and it's a very different process than if you're a photographer now. You can actually look at what you're doing while you're doing it. And I wasn't able to do that. So I would shoot photographs and then get them developed and then look at them. And it was kind of this equation that I couldn't figure out. And it really took some friends actually just kind of like showing me how it works. So I would just say slow down and think about things more than just um, move, than just going out again and shooting more photographs. And then also just stay organized.
Speaking of organization, what were some of the basic tools and resources you used, like when running Seeing Things Gallery, and like what would you recommend to others, like keeping that business like going? What were some of the resources you had?
You know what? I just used like Instagram and Facebook at the time to like kind of get it out there. I mean, when we started, we just made paper flyers, and it was more just word of mouth. It was awesome when it got out there into the world more, but really I was just focused on San Jose and trying to get people to come. So I was always like looking to friends and people like the people at Black and Brown or something to put flyers, and just trying to reach out to people that I knew more than anything.
What was the takeaway for you, and what was your takeaway of the San Jose creative scene? Because you said you'd been there for about 10 years in downtown, getting to know people like the folks at AD and other like music shops and things like that. What were some things that you learned about San Jose that like your main takeaway as in this industry as a creative? Like what is your takeaways about San Jose?
Well, at the time, it was a super big community, and I don't feel like I mean, I'm a little older now, and I have a different job, and I'm a parent and stuff like that. So I'm not sure exactly the pulse of San Jose. You know what I mean? But at the time, it was a giant community, and I felt really great about it because there was places like the Arsenal and Empire 7, and it was always like somebody having an art show in their living room and backyards, and all kinds of things happening. So I felt really good about it, and then I felt really good coming into the community, and felt like we brought something that wasn't here, and that was just kind of like the skate art element to it. But I would say if I was going to start again, I would a collective is probably a better idea. Me and my wife did it together, and that was it. Two people just isn't enough, and it's just not enough to run an art gallery. You need it. We always thought about having interns and people help us, and we did get help and have interns. But I think if I was going to go back and start again, I would probably try to get 4 or 5 people together, because then it kind of spreads out the money, the cost of it, and then also just like having people to help with different things, whether it's painting the wall or being there on a Saturday afternoon, or ideas for shows. And everyone knows knows different artists. They have their own networks. So like I kind of exhausted my network at some point, and I really kind of regret not having more people involved.
Do you think it's important, like, because collective is big, because you get different points of views and different like creative, like different creative like minds, and it seems like um, you're somebody who has like kind of this background in different fields. Do you think it's important for an artist to be very eclectic to run a gallery and hold a space like that?
What does eclectic mean?
Like eclectic as far as like you have like you have kind of this understanding of different art mediums, both like illustrations or photography or film. Like eclectic basically meaning that you're kind of a you're somewhat of a jack of all trades. Do you think that's important when holding a space, like a physical
Oh,
space?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, because you have to do all kinds of different things. You know what I mean? You have to be able to make flyers. You have to be able to paint walls. You have to be able to clean the floors, and also create content for the social media or things, or buy things to have in the shop, whether it's zines or make T-shirts. And you definitely have to have a lot of different um, wear a lot of different hats, and it's nice to be able to do a lot of things and know what it takes to do these things, and look at artists and see like this is worth having in the gallery, or see that their work is meaningful, and that they're doing something that could be part of the gallery.
No, totally. I was just curious because you have so many different mediums coming into a physical space and you're holding space for others. And if you speak the same language, I'm sure that's really important that like your fellow artists know that. But I want to talk a little bit about more of the taxes stuff, because taxes are always a very, tricky thing for a lot of creative artists. And because you had a physical space that you were holding and you probably had different people that you had to pay out and different, just so many different like um, players. What is your tax season? What did your tax season look like at
You know what? We've always been a little creative in our taxes, and I just say creative. I mean, just being a skateboard photographer or being a photographer in general, as a business, you figure out little loopholes and things that how you can write things off, and do different things like that. It's definitely a nightmare when you're working with artists. You know what I mean? Like, um, there's a threshold. I think it's $600 that you can pay them out before you have to actually tax them. So if they don't get past that, then you kind of like, okay, that's just done, and you let them kind of deal with their own taxes. But if they do make more than that, then you have to kind of go through some rigmarole. And I'm just like lucky I have a tax person, and I've had one for a long time. So when we did start it, we had a conversation with them, and then they gave us some info about what we should be looking for. But it wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? You learn some lessons of like when you're buying zines or books or products from people to have in, because we had a little store as well. And you kind of, in the beginning, we had more of a consignment kind of basis, where we would get books and zines and things, and people would bring things in, and we would put them in the shop, and then we would pay them out, on a monthly or a quarterly basis. And when you're writing a check for $3, you know what I mean? You kind of like I don't know if this is worth it or not. It's worth it to have their stuff in the shop for sure. But then you just figure out, like, I'm just gonna buy that from them. I'll just buy 4 of those. And then so you buy 4 scarves and you put them in the shop for whatever, $10 a piece, and you sell them for 20. And if they don't sell, then you just write that off. There's like a thing where you buy stuff, and then at the end of the year, I forget what it's called, but it's like basically you write off things that you didn't sell, and that helped as well. And I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly what that's called, but definitely at the end of the year, my tax person would be like, so what did you, it's almost like leftover stuff that you bought that didn't sell. It's like back stock or something.
Oh,
But taxes are a nightmare, and there's all kinds of loopholes and things that happen. It's crazy. Like, I think that when we first moved into our space, I got a visit from this really nice older Asian woman who came in and she checked out the gallery, and she was so nice. And she was like, I'm from the Downtown Association. And she gave me her card and did all this stuff. And I was like, wow, it's so great to meet you. And I was part of her district and I was so excited. And then I went to go register our business, and I had to pay Downtown Association's fees. And it was like $500. And I hadn't even started my gallery yet. We hadn't even opened the doors. And in order for me to even get a business permit, I had to pay that money to the Downtown Association to get my business permit, which was really crazy to me because I was not even open yet. So it's weird things. There's always weird hurdles that just come up out of nowhere. And they're just kind of like, oh, you owe us money. And you're kind of like, whoa, what happened? How do I owe you money? I'm not even open yet. And they're kind of like, well, yeah, that's just the way it is. And I'm kind of like, this could hinder me from even opening. And she was like, I'm sorry. And then she left, and I was like, okay. And she came back all the time, and she was a really nice lady, and we always had great conversations, and I got over it. But that was the tough pill to swallow. And I think you were talking to the first speaker about what money you need to start a business. You know what I mean? So we had like $1,000 or something. You know what I mean? And we were like, okay, at this rate, we have 2 months rent. We're good. Because I think we were paying $500 for a spot, which is super cheap. It's insane, like rent. So then right away it was like, oh, damn, we have 1 month rent now. So we have to sell art. We have to do these things. So it was kind of crazy.
Sounds like in the DI, like, yeah, I didn't know about all of that with like paying the Downtown Association, all these other things. That's wild. And it kind of like, it sounds like a tax person is really like kind of what your takeaway is. Like, it's good to have some type of expert when it comes to that kind of stuff, because, the IRS is scary. You don't want to mess around when it comes to stuff related to taxes. And having like, the more you kind of understand that world, the easier it is for you to do all those other things. Like, just because your focus is like, you just want to hold space and have space for artists. And then there's all this whole other world that exists when you have a physical brick and mortar space. There are taxes, there's zoning, there's like so many different hurdles. And so it sounds like important to have those things. And I think that it's called the W-9 is the thing you're talking about under $600, because I use it for a lot of businesses that we work with or artists. And it's called unsold inventory, the write-off? It's just called the unsold.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was called, but that's another thing. Like my wife did most of the books, and she dealt with taxes and thought about those things. And I don't think like that. So it was good to have her. And then I think if you had two other people that did different good things, you know what I mean? Somebody who's a graphic designer or somebody who's more leaning towards, retail kind of stuff. So just like I was saying earlier, it's better to have more people, because somebody's going to know, like, oh, I know this person that can help us with the taxes. Or, it's just, if I didn't have my wife, I probably just wouldn't have even done it. I probably wouldn't even have, I would have done the gallery, but probably not done any taxes, and would have paid for it later,
You'd be in jail right now is what you're saying.
Yeah, probably.
So
I'm not that scared of taxes. It's not that scary.
Yeah. What Tupac say, only fear God in the IRS.
I used to be scared of taxes. I'll tell you, I used to. When I was your age, I was scared of taxes. I didn't pay taxes for a long time. And it wasn't until I met a friend that ended up being a tax person. That's my tax guy now. And it was just another skateboarder that owned a tax business. And I started talking to him, and I told him, I haven't paid taxes in 10 years. And he's like, whoa, should we do it? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And once we got that done, I was like, oh, okay, it's not that scary. And then I got money back because I didn't ever make anything. So it's only scary, I think, if you make a lot of money,
So the lesson sounds like, stay poor for as long as possible so you don't have to worry about taxes. Have a lot of friends in a lot of different places. And then,
yeah, or just don't worry about taxes. If you're not making a lot of money, don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal.
Just have a tax friend. Always have a friend who did finance in college, and just...
Or all kinds of things, or someone you can talk to,
Yeah, definitely. Well, Jai, thank you so much. This has been great. We'll have Jai towards the end as part of the Q&A. Um, and we're going to actually transition real quick to Carmen Gaines, who works at Local Color. Just one moment. Hello, Carmen. How are you doing?
Good. I got like instantly nervous and now I'm good again.
Okay.